Prologue: The letter that shouldn't exist. Grief is not a wound, it's an echo, a question that refuses to die, even when everyone else moves on. His name was Daniel. We lived together for 4 years. I remember his voice, his hands, the way he made tea too strong on cold mornings. I remember laughter, arguments, promises whispered in the dark. But after the accident, everything began to unravel. No one else remembered Daniel. There were no photographs, no records, not a single friend who admitted meeting him. Not my parents, not my coworkers, not the landlord who once slipped us rent receipts under the door. When I brought his name up, people changed the subject. Some looked scared. Most just smiled politely, then let it drop. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the mind can fill in the blanks of loneliness with perfect, fragile lies. Then 3 months after the funeral, no one attended, a letter arrived. No return address, no date, just his handwriting. I miss you. I'm not gone. I'll find you soon. My hands shook as I read it. Because grief can lie, but handwriting never does. Part 1. The Unbirthday. My birthday came and went with a little fanfare. A text from my mother, a bottle of wine I opened alone, the rain tapping Morse code on my window. By midnight, I was more numb than sad. I dug through old drawers, hoping to find anything, a card, a note, even a receipt that might prove Daniel existed. Nothing. I scrolled through my phone. His number wasn't there. No texts, no photos. I told myself to let it go, to let the memories fade. But they grew sharper as the hours passed, insisting they were real. At 1:11 a.m., the doorbell rang. I froze. No one visits at that hour, not since the accident. Through the peephole, the hall was empty. But on the floor, just outside the door, lay another envelope. This one was different. Thick, creamy paper, the edges singed as if rescued from a fire. Inside, a single page. His handwriting, looser, almost frantic. Happy unbirthday. Remember the blue door. Love, D. I stared at the note for a long time, hands trembling. There had never been a blue door in our apartment, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was supposed to remember one. Part 2. The Blue Door. I barely slept. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was a joke. Maybe a cruel prank by someone who knew just enough about me and Daniel to hurt. But all day, the phrase stuck in my mind. Remember the blue door. I went back through everything I owned. Searched closets, boxes, every dusty corner. Nothing. Blue. No door, no frame, no sign. Exhausted, I slumped onto the floor, staring at the old bedroom mirror. That's when I saw it. A faint line, painted over, at the bottom corner of the bedroom wall. Just a strip, almost invisible unless the sun hit it just right. I grabbed a butter knife and began to scrape. Paint flaked off in powdery layers. Underneath, a rectangle of faded blue. A door frame. Heart pounding, I pressed my palm to it. The wall was cold, the air behind it hollow. Someone had walled up a door. I shivered. That night, I dreamed of Daniel's voice calling me from the other side. Part 3. The Ghosts Who Remembered. I told no one about the blue door. I knew how it sounded: paranoid, desperate, grieving. But that day at work, something strange happened. A client came to the counter, tall, bearded, with tired eyes. As I rang up his purchase, he paused, studying my face. "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked quietly. I managed to shrug. "Depends on the ghost." He hesitated, glancing around. "Sometimes I think we forget people on purpose. Or maybe someone helps us forget." His words made my skin crawl. "Why are you telling me this?" He looked almost sorry for me. "I used to know someone, years ago. He disappeared, but sometimes I still get letters." I stared at him. "What was his name?" He shook his head as if trying to remember. "It's gone," he whispered. "But the handwriting, every letter is for me. I know it's real." He left before I could say more. That night, another letter appeared under my door. This time, it was just 2 words in Daniel's looping script: "Don't stop." Part 4. The Forgotten Apartment. I started asking questions, quietly at first. The landlord claimed every apartment in the building had the same layout: no hidden doors, no secret rooms. He spoke with the bored assurance of someone who'd given the tour 1,000 times. But when I pressed, mentioning blue paint, he hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Walls get repainted every year," he said quickly. "Nothing special." The next day, I tracked down the previous tenant, a woman named Carla, who lived in my place a decade ago. We met at a cafe, both nervous. "Did you ever find anything strange? A door? Blue paint?" Carla's face paled. She looked over her shoulder before whispering, "He used to knock, always at midnight. I thought it was a dream at first." "Who?" She shook her head, biting her lip. "I tried to forget. After I moved out, I got letters. No return address, no explanation. Always signed D. I threw them away, but he never stopped." My breath caught. "Do you remember his name?" Her eyes filled with tears. "No, that's the worst part. It's like the memory is still there, but someone erased the word." She pushed her coffee away and left before I could say more. That night, I waited for a letter. It didn't come. Instead, at midnight, there was a single knock on the wall behind the blue frame. Part 5. The Photograph That Shouldn't Exist. The next morning, I found an old shoebox on the top shelf of my closet, one I'd searched before countless times. Inside were birthday cards from my mother, concert tickets, loose change, and one Polaroid photo I had never seen. Daniel stood in the photo, smiling, his arm slung around my shoulder. I was laughing, caught mid-sentence, my hair a little longer, the light soft and warm. On the back, Daniel's handwriting trembled across the page. "We almost remembered. D." I stared at it for hours. But when I tried to show it to anyone, my mother, my coworker, the image looked different to them. Just me, alone, smiling at empty air. Part 6. The Letter in Red. The next letter came inside a red envelope, slipped under my door at dusk. This one was heavier, the paper thick, edges burnt, as if it had survived the fire. Inside, Daniel's handwriting trembled across the page. I tried to leave, they wouldn't let me. Don't trust the man with the gray coat. The blue door is the only way out. I love you. D. My hands shook as I read it. I watched the hall through the peephole for an hour, waiting for a stranger in a gray coat. No one came. But that night, as I tried to sleep, I dreamed of Daniel trapped behind glass, pounding on an invisible wall, mouthing the same word over and over. Remember. Part 7. The Man in the Gray Coat. He found me on the subway during morning rush hour. A stranger, tall and angular, dressed in the perfect gray coat, stepped into my carriage and stood too close, as if we were already acquainted. He smiled, polite, empty, and nodded. "You're looking for someone," he said. His voice was soft, with an accent I couldn't place. "Who are you?" I managed, heart pounding. He glanced at the book in my bag, Daniel's old copy of The Waves by Virginia Woolf. I make sure things are forgotten that should be. It's nothing personal. He stepped off at the next stop, vanishing into the crowd. I checked my bag. The book was gone. That night, a new letter appeared, written in Daniel's hand but frantic, jagged. "He's closer now. Find the blue door before he finds you." Part 8. The Key in the Candle. Desperate, I returned home and started tearing the bedroom apart, searching for any sign of the blue door. Something in the wall? In the floorboards? A memory I hadn't yet uncovered? By candlelight, I pressed my palm against the cold blue painted frame, tracing the outline over and over. The candle flickered suddenly, then guttered out. When I relit it, I noticed something odd. A glint of metal inside the half-melted wax. I fished out a small, tarnished key. Attached was a slip of paper, curled and wax-stained. "You have to let me in." That night, the knocking at the wall returned, not once, but 3 times. Louder, more urgent. Part 9. The Night Daniel Spoke. I pressed my ear to the blue frame, whispering Daniel's name over and over, begging for a sign. The knocking stopped. In the silence, I heard his voice, muffled, barely a breath. "Please, open the door. I'm so tired." I tried the key, but there was no lock, only the painted outline, as cold and solid as always. Tears burned my eyes. "I can't," I whispered. "You're not real." The wall shuddered beneath my hand, like something alive. Then behind me, the old radio flickered on. Static crackled, and Daniel's voice emerged, clearer than it had ever been in memory. "You are the only one who remembers. That's why they want you to forget." The radio died. The apartment plunged into silence. I slept with the key clutched in my hand, praying for another letter or a dream that would finally set me free. Part 10. The Forgotten Friend. The next morning, I called Ivy, my oldest friend, the only person who might understand. We hadn't spoken much since Daniel disappeared from everyone's memories. Our friendship, once steady, had faded into awkward texts and missed birthdays. I begged her to meet me in person. At a coffee shop downtown, I showed her the Polaroid. I watched her brow furrow as she stared at the image. "That's just you," she said quietly. "You look happy, but it's like you're talking to someone who isn't there." Desperation pushed me. "Ivy, you have to believe me. I remember everything. His voice, his laugh, the smell of his cologne, the letters. I'm not crazy." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I know you're not crazy, but sometimes grief rewrites our memories. Maybe your mind filled in the gaps." I wanted to scream, to shake her until the truth fell out, but her eyes were kind, full of pity and worry. "I used to have dreams about you and someone else in your apartment, but every time I tried to remember his face, it blurred, like someone erased him before I woke up." She paused, eyes wide. "And last night, I found a letter in my mailbox. No name, just my address. It said, 'Don't let her forget me, please.' Does that mean anything to you?" I nodded, tears prickling my eyelids. "He's reaching out to anyone who might remember, but the world is working hard to make sure no one does." Part 11. The night all the clocks stopped. That night, unease clung to me like a wet sheet. I checked the blue-framed wall again, running my hands over the cold paint, hunting for any mechanism, any weakness. At exactly midnight, every clock in my apartment stopped. The microwave blinked 12, the old alarm clock froze, my phone lost signal. The world fell into a thick, timeless hush. Then came a sound, not knocking, but a shuddering sigh from deep within the wall. The radio clicked on by itself. Daniel's voice, softer now, more exhausted, filled the room. "They're close. If you forget me, I disappear. But if you open the door, you may never come back." A low hum began to fill the room, vibrating the windows. Shadows along the blue frame twisted, shifting, as if something behind the wall was trying to break through. I backed away, clutching the key. For the first time, I wondered if I was protecting Daniel, or keeping something much darker locked away. Part 12. Ivy remembers. Ivy texted at dawn, "Meet me at your place, now." She arrived pale, eyes rimmed red. "I woke up with these," she said, holding out her hands. Her palms were stained blue like she had been pressing them against paint in her sleep. "We have to open the door," she whispered. "I remembered more last night. There was music, your favorite song, and his voice. I heard him say your name clear as day." She paced my living room, nerves fraying at the edges. "I saw him, just for a second. He was standing in the kitchen, holding a letter. He looked so lost. He said, 'Tell her to use the key.'" We stood before the blue-framed wall, uncertain. Ivy closed her eyes, pressed her palms to the frame, and hummed a melody she dreamed. For a breathless moment, the air in the room changed, warmer, lighter, as if some great weight had shifted. A faint line appeared at the edge of the frame, a hairline crack spreading outward. I pressed the key against it. The wall pulsed beneath my fingers, and for the first time, I heard Daniel's laughter, distant, echoing, achingly familiar. Ivy opened her eyes, startled. "We're close," she whispered, "but something else is close too." Part 13. The Man in the Mirror. Night fell heavy and suffocating. Ivy stayed on the couch, refusing to leave me alone. We watched the blue frame, waiting for another letter, another sign. Just after 3 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Soft, steady, then pausing at my door. I peeked through the peehole. The corridor was empty. But when I turned, I saw movement in the living room mirror. A man's reflection. Not Daniel. Someone older, taller, with sharp gray eyes and that same perfect gray coat. He stood behind us in the glass, expression unreadable. He raised his finger to his lips, a silent warning. Ivy gasped, backing away. In the mirror, the man pressed his palm flat against the glass. Blue paint smeared under his hand, just like Ivy's palms. My heart hammered. I shouted at the mirror, "Who are you?" He smiled, lips thin and cold. You can't rescue what isn't yours to keep. Memory belongs to those who forget. Then the mirror cracked from corner to corner. We stared, terrified, as blue paint seeped through the fracture, tracing the outline of a door. Part 14. The room that wasn't there. In the pale morning light, the crack in the mirror remained, blue streaks staining the glass. Ivy and I sat silent on the floor, both too exhausted to sleep, afraid to move. The apartment felt different. It was as if an extra wall now pressed in on us, shifting the shape of every room. Finally, I mustered the courage to speak. "We need to break it," I said, gesturing at the mirror. Ivy nodded, her hand trembling as she picked up the old fireplace poker. With a single sharp strike, the mirror shattered, not in glassy shards, but in long strips, peeling away like old wallpaper. Behind the mirror was a door. Not just a faint outline this time, but a real, solid blue door, framed in peeling paint with an old iron keyhole at its center. Ivy stared, breathless. "That was never here," she whispered. "It was always here," I said, the truth somehow obvious now. We just forgot how to look. The key, warm in my palm, felt as if it vibrated with Daniel's memory. Ivy squeezed my shoulder. "Do we open it?" I closed my eyes, thinking of Daniel's letters, his laughter, the loss that had hollowed out my life. "We have to look," I said, "but not alone." Part 15. Letters on the Other Side. Together, we fit the key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click, echoing through the room. The blue door swung open with a low sigh, revealing a narrow corridor bathed in cold blue light. We stepped inside. The air smelled of candle wax and old books, sharp with the metallic tang of forgotten tears. Lining the corridor's walls were letters, hundreds, maybe thousands, all in Daniel's handwriting. Some were addressed to me, some to Ivy, many to names I didn't recognize. Some were burnt around the edges, some pristine, some marked "returned" in block letters. As I reached for one, my hand passed through it. The paper flickered like static, intangible, barely there. Ivy pointed ahead. At the corridor's end stood Daniel, pale and thin, his eyes deep with longing. But he didn't move toward us. Instead, he stood before another door, this one pitch black, pulsing with a strange energy. He smiled, so faint I could barely see it. "Thank you for remembering," he whispered. Part 16. The Archivist. A figure stepped from the shadows. The man in the gray coat. He walked slowly, almost regretfully, past Daniel, past the blue door, and stopped a few feet from us. "This is the end of the line," he said. "Not everyone is meant to keep their ghosts." His eyes were endless and old, filled with a sadness I didn't understand. "Why do you do this?" Ivy demanded, anger and grief mixing in her voice. "Why erase people? Why him?" The archivist looked down, hands folded. "Memory is a house with too many rooms. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Some griefs are too heavy for the world to bear." He turned to me. "You remembered him because you loved him. That love was enough to open the door. But every time you let go, every time you forget, he fades a little more." Daniel's voice cut in, trembling. "I'm tired, but I'm not ready to disappear." Part 17. The Choice. The blue corridor pulsed, the black door at its end beckoned, shadows writhing on its surface. Daniel turned to me, hope and sorrow warring in his eyes. "I can stay," he whispered, "but you'll have to remember everything, the good and the terrible, the loss, the pain, the nights you wished you could forget. And you'll never move on. Not really." Ivy squeezed my hand. "If you let him go, he might finally rest. You might finally live. But it's your choice." The archivist watched, silent, waiting. My whole body shook with the weight of the question. To remember was to live with ache forever. To forget was to lose him forever. I closed my eyes, Daniel's letters heavy in my heart. "I want him to be free," I said, tears streaming down my face. Daniel smiled, his form already turning to blue smoke. He said, "Thank you." As the black door opened for him, light pouring through, he stepped inside. The blue corridor faded. The letters on the wall peeled away into dust. Ivy's hand was warm in mine. We stood alone, the shattered mirror behind us, the blue door gone, the silence profound. Part 18. The World Without Letters. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned, like the air has finally exhaled. Ivy and I sat together on the floor, the broken mirror sparkling around us, daylight streaming in. My hands trembled, my chest hollow and raw. There was no blue frame on the wall, no key, no trace of any door at all. I tried to recall Daniel's voice, his scent, the shape of his hands. The harder I reached, the more memory blurred at the edges, as if a fog crept in. Ivy put her arm around my shoulders. "I'm still here," she whispered. "I'm not sure I am," I said, voice barely audible. That night, I went through every drawer, every old box, searching for just one letter, one line in Daniel's handwriting. Nothing. Every trace gone. The Polaroid was only a photo of me, alone, a pale blur where Daniel had been. I crawled into bed, clutching the empty space beside me. For the first time in months, I didn't dream of the blue door. Part 19. The Last Letter. A week passed in numbness. Ivy visited daily, making tea, telling stories, keeping the loneliness at bay. On a rainy Thursday, a letter arrived. This one was different. The paper thin as moth wings, the envelope unsealed. No handwriting, no signature. Inside, a single blank page. But when I held it to the light, faint blue words shimmered through, visible only for a moment. Thank you. Be happy. D. Tears spilled freely. I pressed the letter to my heart, letting the ache settle not as pain, but as memory, a gentle ache, not the endless wound I'd carried for so long. That night, I slept dreamlessly. When I woke, I felt lighter. Part 20. Ivy's Door. Life began to move forward in small ways. Ivy and I spent evenings in companionable silence. The blue paint on her hands faded, but something changed between us. A deeper trust, a knowing sadness that made every laughter precious. One night, as we walked along the river, she paused, looking thoughtful. I think we keep doors locked inside us for too long. We're afraid to open them because of what we might lose or what we might let go. I nodded, feeling Daniel's presence like a warm shadow. Ivy smiled, a little sad, a little hopeful. Maybe that's how we carry them, not with pain, but with gratitude. We walked on, side by side, into the hush of the city. Part 21. Epilogue. The Blue Hour. Years later, on the anniversary of the day I met Daniel, I sat in the new apartment, sunlight painting the walls gold. I found myself humming a song I hadn't thought of in years, our song, soft and bittersweet. On the bookshelf, tucked between old letters and novels, I found a slip of blue ribbon. I wrapped it around my wrist. Outside, as the sky shifted to evening, the world seemed briefly blue, a color full of longing, memory, and quiet joy. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you for loving me, even if the world tried to forget." And somewhere, in a place beyond doors and letters, I felt Daniel's smile.